welcome in. Okay, so there's so much change in AI. Everyone is familiar with AI, but there's a lot of debate of where it's going. Some people see AI as just a fad, that it's kind of like the latest iPhone or latest computer, that it's not really so revolutionary. It's something that will go away. Um, Other people see it as something like a calculator. That's a very innovative tool that is going to change the way that, people are doing certain tasks. Other people see it even bigger, like the steam engine that brought about the Industrial Revolution. And some people are scared. They think it's going to be this evil thing that takes over and tries to exterminate humans, like HAL 9000 from the movies. And so as we consider, the state of AI, these are things that we're talk about, and we can jump in more into details, but just be aware that as new AI tools are coming out, we're going to see different ways that it's more like each of these things. And so there's not one right answer yet. There's definitely the possibility that each of these things could become more true, but these are the sort of analogies that experts are making of what AI is like. To understand how much these analogies make sense or don't, depending on the situation, let's focus on the most popular one with students in the United States. Though it's the first one, so it's also very famous. How does ChatGPT actually work? So first, we have to understand, what is AI? Who knows what AI means? What does AI stand for? Dana or Juliana, you can jump in and help too.
Great. I think AI stands for artificial intelligence.
Good. So unlike something like a calculator that's only going to work when you tell it exactly what to do, artificial intelligence has a little bit more of autonomy. And more specifically, when we're talking about ChatGPT, we're talking about the type of artificial intelligence called generative artificial intelligence, meaning it's not just programmed and following instructions like a calculator, it's actually self-learning. It's doing certain processes to improve over time without direct input from humans. So AI is artificial intelligence, and the new wave that's being used by students in schools, and schools are starting to try to figure out how to use, is called generative AI, which is really came into use about 3 years ago and has taken off from there. And we believe that it'll continue to grow in its use. Okay, ChatGPT, Gemini, and um, sort some of these other ones that are being used a lot by students in essay writing and other things are called LLMs. This is a harder one. Anyone know what LLM stands for?
I don't know what it stands for, sorry.
That's okay. It's a large language model. So large language model, so ChatGPT and anything GPT, all of these that are you're able to type in questions, able to respond um, as if it was a person. That's a specific type of generative AI called a large language model. And this is how it works. There's a nice infographic. And yes, I did use ChatGPT to make this infographic if you're curious. But so this is ChatGPT explaining how it works. So it's not actually working like a human. It doesn't understand the words. Rather, based off of all of the documents and things that it has stored in it, which can be very large, which is why they're um, able to talk about many different things, but based off of all of those things, it turns every word into what's called a token. And every token, which is usually a word, though longer words can be also multiple tokens, but it tries to predict what is going to be the next token, what is going to be the next word in the sentence. Here's a simple example that it provided. The capital of France is. So using probabilities, it's going to try to predict the next word. It doesn't know, it doesn't store facts. There's not any facts in any of these programs, which is why they make mistakes. However, it does notice in the thousands of documents it has that mentions France, that often France is associated with Paris. And so it's really just a statistical calculation that it's making. And so it scores all possible words, and it finds that the most likely next word is Paris. So think of it as focusing on the keywords, looking for patterns in how words are associated, and then choosing the top prediction. Now you can actually change it in different types of LLMs. They don't always choose the top word. They might, if you tell it to be creative or do something like write a poem, might actually choose the second or third word. But for most cases, when a student or a teacher is just asking it to write something, this is how it's working. Remember that it doesn't always choose the word that's true. It doesn't have any way to know what is factually true or not. Okay. So what is the bad of this and how it can be used? Well, the bad aspect of this, and this is well researched, for example, a great article, which I have linked for all of you in this video, is there's a nice article that explains very clearly that there's a strong connection between AI use and brain fry, which can lead to mistakes, tiredness, and burnout. What is good is when AI is used to replace repetitive tasks. For example, in the legal field, when it used to be that new lawyers had to review thousands of documents. Well, AI is very good at something like that, like going through thousands of texts and distilling them to just the big ideas. Now, that doesn't mean that it might not be good to read those texts sometimes, but if you're in a time crunch, it might be good to use AI for something like that. But if AI is just added onto your already existing workload, which it often is, especially in education, if AI is just something extra you have to learn and you don't see the value for it, it's actually going to lead to more mistakes, tiredness, and burnout for you to try to just add it to your normal workload. So that's the ugly, is when it's not used properly, because remember, it's not actually giving us information, it's just trying to act human-like based off of thousands and thousands of documents. Another problem with it is just like when Google first came out, we noticed that people were not remembering information as much. How many of you actually remember lots and lots of new phone numbers? Probably not as many as you used to, because it can be stored in your phone. In the same way, when people can just Google information, they don't have to memorize or remember information as much. And that's been explored even as back in 2008, when Nicholas Carr, the famous journalist, asked the question, is Google making us stupid? And actually, the research is very clear that the more you rely on these tools, the more you're going to remember things less for yourselves. Just like we don't remember telephone numbers anymore because of iPhones, we don't remember things that we can easily access online. Unfortunately, that means more and more students who are relying on ChatGPT to do their math, English, or history homework, they're not practicing the skills they need in order to do things for themselves. And there's a lot of evidence for that. I could talk about this forever, but we're going to try to get to the next portion. So if you want to hear more about this, just ask me at the end. So that's kind of the ugly and the bad of AI in education and how it's actually inhibiting learning in some cases. Any questions on that so far? Give me a little thumbs up if you're ready to go on. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's the state of AI. So again, to recap for those of you who missed it, so we talked about what is AI. Some people have compared it to just the latest iPhone. Some people have compared it to a calculator and how that can be disruptive. Some people have compared it to the steam engine. That's going to bring a whole new revolution. And some people are scared that it's like how 9,000 going to try to eliminate us. I explained how ChatGPT works, that it's not actually understanding or it doesn't have facts, so it can actually lead to hallucinations or other things because it's just predicting the next word based off of the documents it's been fed, and how this can lead to brain fog, AI slop, and poor student writing. And feel free to jump in with questions or thoughts at any points. What's the good side, though? The good side is that AI can actually provide greater access to students with free access to excellent tutoring in math, science, writing, all of these things. How do we do that? Well, just like AI can be used as a good tool like a calculator to help some students to check their work, for example, ChatGPT can be, and other large language models can be used to replace repetitive tasks and actually help learning. That means that a student who might not have access to a tutor can put in their math work that they've already tried for themselves. That's the key. They have to already try it first to do the hard work of learning. And then they could check their work using something like ChatGPT or some of these more LLMs. Do note that nowadays the models and AI is much better at math. If you use some of the older ones, it will make a lot of mistakes because of that predicting next token issue. But that has been improved, and now mostly they will get it right. So remember, we're not trying to replace student work, we're trying to give them tools to succeed. Let me show you some good AI tools now. So I'm going to share my other screen. Oh, thank you for responding in the chat. Okay, so this is some AI tools that are currently used by my company, ScholarDog, that you can make a free account, and we'll send you information at the end of probably send it Monday. But here's some of the ways that you can use it. So nice thing about AI is because of its predictive power that if you have real teachers who are checking the work and making sure it's not doing things that are bad, is you can do things that, again, are very repetitive tasks. For example, when I was teaching physics, I would like to have multiple versions of the test. That's a good way because you don't want students looking over to their friends and trying to copy their work. And so if you can do something to use AI to make multiple versions of the same test that are completely fair, that's going to save me a lot of time and effort. Now, AI can be used to help me do that. Let me show you a little bit of how that would look. So let's do algebra because we have some math teachers here. Let's say you want to do a test on linear relationships. So you can have AI quickly generate many different questions for you. So let's do some settings. Been a minute since I've done this, and it's just quickly generating some questions. Now, this easy, medium, hard is not actually generated by AI. It's something that teachers like me for the company has actually qualified because we have experience, so we know what questions are easy, medium, or hard for students. But eventually, maybe you could make this so that the AI could do that automatically if you want to. And then you can select the exact difficulty of the questions you want. You can select specific knowledge points. Let's say I want students to be able to find the slope from 2 points, from a table, or from a graph. I want to make sure they understand the difference between positive, negative, zero, and undefined slope. And I want some questions on the standard form of linear equations. Those are the exact topics I want. I'll make sure the test, maybe this is just a first test. They're just learning it, so I'll make it easy for this one, though you can change that to medium or hard. And I'll generate test. And instead of spending such a long time, and now I hit next. Now I have a nice version of the test that it could generate for me. Oh, it deleted my knowledge points. 1 second. I'm just gonna select all of these just to illustrate. Yeah, and you can see here's a nice little quiz that it generated. And again, this would have saved me a lot of time when I was the first teacher because I can put in my version of the test and can quickly spit out, a few different versions so that I can give different versions of the test to each of the students or make sure students don't have the exact same version of the test as someone next to them. Kind of makes sense? Cool. Thank you. So another way that AI is being used in math and science in particular is it can also be used to help grading. So another thing from the teacher perspective is if you can actually upload student work. And this is very easy to do in math because it's very easy for the AI to understand because math is going to be one final answer. And then you can set the parameters like you always want to make sure that they show their work, or you always want to make sure that they have certain things. And then you can upload student work and it'll actually help grade it for you. And again, like I said, it can actually go beyond just grading the final answer. That's something that you could do very quickly, but it could also notice patterns like are students always showing their work? Are they never showing their work? And provide some feedback for the student. So this is something, the way that AI is going to be used a lot more in education. Back to the slideshow. There you go. So those are just a couple of the good AI tools that we are using in ScholarDoc, but there's many more. Again, the big idea here from a student perspective is AI is able to give them feedback, let's say the night before the test. Because as teachers, those of you who teach or tutor or work with students, they always are going to procrastinate. So no matter how many times I give them review sessions, they're always going to want to study the night before the test. And I'm not going to be available to them at 1 a.m. the night before the test, but that's a good opportunity if they have some of these resources where they can submit their work, get feedback when they can interact with the chat bot or other things, as long as it's a bot that's going to give them the right answers and help walk them through the process, that's going to be a great resource for them. And that's something that we're trying to do at ScholarDog and is not unique. I think a lot of these large companies are going to make products that are more available to young people to help them in the learning process. But remember, the goal is this. Our goal is not to replace student work. Our goal is to take something that they couldn't do before and make it a little bit more accessible to them. And this way, it's kind of like a calculator. A calculator, when it's used correctly, doesn't prevent students from learning math. Why is that? Well, a good student will try the problem without the calculator and then check their work with the calculator. And so they're not short-circuiting the learning process, but they're using the calculator as a tool responsibly. Same thing can be true for these learning models, that the more students rely on them to avoid work, it's actually going to inhibit their learning process. Then the more they use it to check their work, the more they use it to as a tool to respond to what they're doing, the more learning will happen. And so currently, AI can definitely be used like a calculator in learning context. Okay, any questions so far about any of that? Okay. I would love to hear, any thoughts or questions. So all of you have taken some time out to learn more about AI. So in the chat, as you think about it, or if you're so bold, you could unmute and say it, how do you see students using AI? And how would you like to use it? Do you see it as a good thing, a bad thing? I would love to hear more from you, and that'll help you kind of tailor the next bit to your needs. So take a minute to think about that question. What is AI like? Maybe we'll go back to this question we started with. Do you think AI is more like just a little fad, like a new iPhone? Do you think it's a bad thing, like HAL 9000 that's going to take over Do you think it's something revolutionary? What do you think? So take a minute to answer this question. That'll kind of help me tailor the next bit of this meeting. So the question was, what is AI like? What do you think? Do you think it's like a calculator? You could say something else too. Do you think it's just a fad? Do you think it's good, bad? What do you think? Love to hear from everyone. Go ahead and unmute or put in the chat. Again, the question is, what do you think AI is like? Do you think it's like a calculator? Do you think it's a good thing? It's a bad thing? Do you think it helps students? I want your honest opinion. We can continue the discussion. Very good. Helping. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it can be very good. Yeah. If used correctly. Yeah, that's the big situation. Yuan, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Well, can you unmute and tell us what do you mean if it's used correctly?
Yeah, so I think AI is a great resource for our students, but if it's used correctly, if they know how to navigate it and they know how to be able to use it rather than use it for bad.
Yeah.
Use it as a learning as a tool that's going to help them rather than like enable them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me show you what that can look like. I'll show you from the student perspective. I showed you from the teacher perspective. Now let me show you from the student perspective. So give me 1 second to pull up a student account. So I'm showing it on my company's website. There's many other companies, of course, that are doing this, but it's easier for me to show you on my company's website. Um, so this is from the student perspective. So from the student perspective, let's say we have assignment. This is another math assignment. Shout out to the math teachers. So this is on rational expressions. So start the assignment. So the key thing is that it's not going to just do the work for me. Let me show you what I mean. So see where it says chat with AI teacher. So this is an AI, but let's say I go here and I don't want to do this work. So I just tell the chat bot, tell me the answer. Let's see what it says. I understand you're looking for the answer, but let's focus on understanding the process. So that's a good bot. It's not doing the work for me. It's gonna give me hints, gonna help me, but it's not gonna just tell me the answer so that I can turn in a number. It's actually gonna explain the process. So if I actually am trying to do learning, this is gonna help me. In this way, it could actually be more effective than, let's say, a calculator because it's walking me through the process. So for example, in this one, I have to simplify. So I have to find the least common denominator. So should I multiply both parts by the least common denominator? Let's see what it says. Yes, that's a great idea. So see, I'm good at giving it some work and I'm using it to kind of check my work. And so we're going to multiply both parts. So this ends up being 5x. I'm not going to do all of this for you because it's kind of going to be boring for you, but I'm just demonstrating how a student could use this. So multiply both by, you're kind of like cross multiplying. So I'm going to do 5 times 4x, x plus 4. So 5x plus 20 plus 2x minus 6 all over the least common denominator. Is that correct? You're on the right track. Okay. And so looks like we expanded it out, kind of like we said, 5 times this, 2 times this. What are the results? And so it'll kind of walk you through the process. Here's the key that this particular AI bot has been trained to not just give you the answer. There's no way that it can just give me the answer. You have to actually walk through the learning process. And that's the key. So students need these controls because, a lot of young students, if they have the, ability to just use it to write an essay for them or do their math homework for them, which all of these can, by the way, the big ones, ChatGPT, Gemini, all of them can just do the work for them. Then they're going to often choose to not do the work if they're not responsible. But what we need to do is give them options and programs that will actually not refuse to do the work for them, but walk them through the process and give them the tutoring they need. Again, this would be a great resource if they're at home, it's late at night, they don't have anyone to help them, and they need help learning the process. Or maybe their parents can't help them because their parents don't know the particular math class that they're in. This happens all the time. AI can be a great resource to help those students. Okay, so that's kind of the main thing I have for you. I know it's a little early, but before I close out, what other questions or thoughts do you have before I close our meeting? Everything makes sense? Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, in case you don't have my email is very simple. Teacher, and then my name, Samuel Rickert at gmail.com. I sent you the link for this meeting, and I'll be sending you another email on Monday inviting you to try out more of these products, and also just seeing if you want to continue the discussion. So that should be the same email you got the link from, but I'll send you email on Monday. If you ever have any questions, myself and other teachers are looking to just collaborate. We're looking to figure this out together and figure out how to best use AI for good and not for bad. We said, and just to summarize, go back to the slides real quick, if I can find them. Yes, there we go. So just to summarize real quick, we talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI. We talked about how it works, that it doesn't actually know anything. It's just using the information fed into it. This is actually important. This means that you, as teachers, as educators, as people are trying to invest in the next generation, we have to make sure we use tools that are fed with accurate information. That way it doesn't do bad things. We also said it can be used to help students and help teachers if we're using it to avoid repetitive tasks, not just adding onto it. We said that unfortunately, students are often using it to do work for them. A biggest way we've seen this is students are relying on it to write their essays. Then that means that they're not going to learn their writing skills. And then I demonstrated some of the good of AI, that it can actually be used as a tool to help students to check their work and get tutoring when they otherwise would not have to do this. Yes, please reach out through email anytime with questions or thoughts. I'm available to you. And hopefully this will just be the first of many meetings like this where we can learn together. Maybe I can even invite some guests. I had the opportunity to talk to some of my UCLA friends who are using AI in a variety of different fields. Some of them work in confidential fields, I won't say what, but all of them are figuring out how to use AI. And the big thing is this is so new, no one's an expert yet. I do a lot of research, I'm very interested in this, but this is something we're all learning about together. Okay, with that, I'm going to officially end the recording, but thank you so much for coming. Feel free to ask any questions if you want, and feel free to reach out and email anytime. Thank you for taking time out of your day to meet today.